And those who clap for injustice, by the special grace of God, you will one day have a taste of it. Terrorists and bandits are going up and down, doing all sorts of havoc in northern Nigeria, in eastern Nigeria, in western Nigeria. Some weeks ago, they entered Kwara State and killed Christians inside the church. Anke Shesu, inside the church. Weeks ago, Anje Kebi, Government Girls Comprehensive Secondary School Maga, and adopted 25 pupils and killed their principal. Where is Leah Sharibu today? Where is Leah Sharibu? Deborah was set ablaze in Sokoto, and to my greatest surprise, lawyers came out. Not that they were hidden, they came out openly to defend those Islamic extremists, the mobs that are ablaze. What is the justice we are talking about here? Nnamdi Kanu is the least of our problems in this country. Is the least of our problems. Our brothers, our fathers are being sent, soldiers are being sent, die for nothing. You all saw the general that was. So where is the justice that we are talking about? Where is the justice? Nnamdi Kanu shine masala mu a Nigeria. Nnamdi Kanu shine masala mu a Nigeria. Allah ba yana kallon mu. Allah yana kallon mu. God is watching. God is watching. Everyone that is seeing the injustice in this country, that is clapping hand for it, I pray for you this morning. You and your family will have a taste of injustice. You and your family will have a taste of injustice. Christians are being unalive every day in Benue, in Plateau, in Niger. Just name it. People are living in fear. Christians who are converting are living in fear. They are after their life. Everywhere is fear. Bandits are coming out to make live videos. A lot of Islamic scholars are coming out openly to have a meeting with bandits. And up till today, nobody have called them for questioning. Sanya imudan mutum ya tashi ya yi defending kanshi za a zo lokacin ne aka san justice. Where is the justice system we are talking about here? Nnamdi Kanu, you see our problem? Is Nnamdi Kanu our problem? God is watching. In the name of Jesus, release Nnamdi Kanu.
The conviction of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of indigenous people of Biafra, has triggered a wave of reactions across Nigeria. It has driven emotions. What many expected to be a turning point for peace instead became a moment of disappointment for millions. Peterobi, in his own terms, condemned the judgment, insisting that Kanu should never have been arrested in the first place. Cubana Chief Priest issued a warning to the federal government, declaring that the Southeast cannot be sidelined in 2027 if Kanu remains in detention. Governor Otti responded calmly, assuring Nigerians that strategic efforts are already underway to secure Kanu's release. Meanwhile, Reno Omokri, the enemy of Igbo, as expected, sparked controversy with comments many see as unfair, inflammatory, and targeted at the Igbo cause. From politicians to celebrities to everyday Nigerians, comedians, their voices are loud and clear. Kanu's conviction has reopened old wounds and intensified national tension. Let's take this one after the other. Starting from Mr. Peterobi's message about Nnamdi Kanu's conviction. He wrote, Kanu's conviction. The news of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's conviction should compel every well-meaning Nigerian to pause and reflect. This is coming at a time when our beloved nation is facing severe economic hardship, insecurity, and the consequences of poor governance. Rather than reducing tension, this unfortunate development may well only aggravate it. I have always maintained that Mazi Kanu should never have been arrested. His arrest, detention, and non-conviction represent a failure of leadership and a misunderstanding of the issue at stake. For years, I have consistently argued that dialogue, constructive engagement, and inclusive governance offer the path to lasting peace. Coercion becomes necessary only when reason has been exhausted. In this case, I submit that the reason was not only not exhausted, but was probably not explored at all, or not fully explored. The concerns Kanu raised were not unheard of. The issue for which he demanded solutions were not insoluble. It only required wisdom, empathy, and a willingness to listen. In any functional society, such grievances are met with dialogue and reforms aimed at strengthening unity. The government approach has only deepened mistrust and created an avoidable distraction at a time when citizens are overwhelmed by harsh economic realities and insecurity. While some may insist that the law has taken its course, leadership often demands more than a strict, mechanical application of the law. Nations around the world resort to political solutions, negotiated settlements, and even amnesty when legal processes alone cannot serve the broader interests of peace and stability. Nigeria is not an exception. He continued, "The handling of Kanu's case mirrors the government as a man trapped in a hole, but who, instead of looking for a way out, keeps digging deeper. It wasn't not only the government's predicament, but also the nation's collective condition. If we truly desire a new Nigeria, a united, peaceful, and progressive one, our leaders must choose healing over hostility, reconciliation over retaliation, and dialogue over division. Only by addressing grievances with justice, fairness, and compassion can we move towards a future where every Nigerian feels heard, valued, and safe. My ultimate call at this time, without prejudice to how anyone feels about the decision of the court, is for us to be optimistic for peace and reconciliation, which will come in the end. I am also saying thereby that the presidency, the Council of State, and credible statesmen who love this country and who are interested in the cohesion and inclusivity should rise to the occasion for a lasting solution. Most people that will come for an attack on peterobi, he's actually asking for 4 major things, and it all centered on leadership, national stability, and the consequences of the federal government of Nigeria handling of Nnamdi Kanu's case. Peterobi is saying Kanu's conviction is ill-timed and dangerous for national stability. How true is this? Obi is saying that at a time when Nigerians are suffering from severe economic hardship, insecurity, and failed governance, the conviction of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu only adds fuel to an already tense national atmosphere. So instead of calming down the country, it risks aggravating tensions, especially in a region already feeling marginalized. Secondly, Peterobi is saying Kanu should have never been arrested or convicted in the first place. Obi maintains his long-held position. Kanu's arrest was completely unnecessary. His detention was excessive, and his conviction reflects failed leadership, not justice. He argues that the dialogue was never, fully explored, sometimes not even at all, and that the government misunderstood or ignored the issue Kanu raised. Thirdly, Peterobi is saying that political solutions are far much better than any force. Obi is making a strong point that nations often use political solution, dialogue, negotiation, amnesty, reconciliation, especially when legal processes alone cannot maintain peace. Like I do say, judiciary can never decide the fate of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, whose stand is that of Igbo. Peterobi is a warning that strict use of force or legal technicalities cannot heal deep national grievances. A wise government chooses healing over hostility, reconciliation over retaliation, dialogue over cohesion. Peterobi is also saying that the government approach has actually deepened mistrust. Obi compares the government to a man inside a hole who keeps digging deeper instead of climbing out. This means government actions have worsened the tensions, increased suspicion between the state and citizens, and distracted the country from more serious crises like hunger, unemployment, and insecurity ravaging the country everywhere. Peterobi calls for a national intervention for peace. Obi urged the presidency, the Council of State, elder statesmen to step in and find a political, compassionate, and lasting solution. He believes peace and reconciliation are still possible if Nigeria chooses justice, fairness, empathy, and dialogue. So, Peterobi is saying that Kanu's conviction is a leadership failure that threatens national unity. And I see through to this, it actually worsens the tension, and we're already seeing it, and shows the government prefer force over dialogue. He insists that Kanu's grievances deserve discussion, not suppression, and that a political solution is urgently needed to restore peace and stability in Nigeria. As usual, Reno Omokri has this to respond as regards to what Peterobi actually wrote. Dear citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, remember when I told you that a vote for Peterobi, either as president or vice president in 2027, is a vote for a presidential pardon from Nnamdi Kanu. Well, here in his statement released today is the proof. Peterobi says Nnamdi Kanu should never have been arrested, let alone tried. But the truth is that Nnamdi Kanu is the head of an organization named the Indigenous People of Biafra, which was declared a terrorist organization by the Nigerian government, and he has major supporters and sympathizers, including Mr. Peterobi, who affirmed on a channel television interview broadcast that Nnamdi Kanu has done nothing warranting arrest. But is that true? Mr. Kanu gave broadcast on Radio Biafra in the first week of October 2020, in which he urged his followers and supporters to burn down Lagos and unalive military personnel as part of the NSAS protest. His exact words were as follows: Lagos imports should be on flames. Reach the perimeter fence and burn down Lagos. Anybody, if you have a double barrel, if you have a pistol, anything you have, give it to them. Let them go and unalive them. Penetrate the airport and set Murtala Mohammed Airport on fire. Set it ablaze right now. Then the world will listen. Continuing, Mr. Kanu said as follows: You are dealing with animals, Fulani Janjaweed. They are animals. They do not reason. They do not reason. You don't know them. Thereafter, he received a call on his broadcast on Radio Biafra and berated his followers on the line for not unaliving military men. He said as follows: How many policemen died? I don't want to hear. They kill us. They kill us. How many did you kill? How many police or armed did you unalive? Mr. Kanu was then told of the casualties inflicted on the military, to which he responded as follows: Thank you very much. The very next day after Nnamdi Kanu's broadcast, Lagos lost over 700 billion in property damage during NSAS protests, and tens of soldiers and police officers were unalived. That amount is twice Anambra State's 2024 budget. 80 BRT buses were destroyed, along with the Lagos State DNA and Forensic Center, the most advanced forensic laboratory in Black Africa. Next, they set ablaze the Lagos Oriental Hotel before burning City Hall, Igbo's Records, which was the oldest court in Nigeria, and almost 20 police stations. Finally, they looted banks, ShopRite stores, and multiple malls. And this is the person Peterobi claimed is innocent. Nigerians, never forget this in 2027 and beyond. Peterobi must never be president of Nigeria. Reno Omokri. Well, Reno's outburst to Peterobi is very, very expected. Reno Omokri's latest outburst is yet another example of how deeply his bias against anything that has to do with Igbo has clouded his judgment. The desperation is now so obvious that he is comparing apples to stones just to attack Peterobi and to delegitimize genuine grievances from the Southeast. First, Reno Omokri's attempt to equate IPOB agitation with Fulani militant terrorism is not only dishonest, but also reveals a long-standing pattern. Anytime an Igbo issue comes up, whether political, cultural, or humanitarian, Reno Omokri suddenly becomes the loudest voice of condemnation. Yet, the same energy evaporates when the subject involves northern actors, even when their crimes are openly violent, documented, and ongoing. And everyone can bear me witness that his comparison always collapses. First, Peterobi's position on Nnamdi Kanu is grounded in law and justice, not ethnic bias. Peterobi never justified violence. He simply said Kanu's arrest and extraordinary rendition violated due process, which both Nigerian and international courts have agreed on. He argued for dialogue, fairness, and political solutions, the same approach Nigeria used with Niger Delta militants and even the Boko Haram actors. So Peterobi's stand is perfectly legitimate democratic stance. Secondly, comparing that to Shekagumi is dishonest. Shekagumi openly defends armed terrorists who kidnap children, enters their forest camp for photo ops, call it negotiation or whatever, blames the Nigerian government for attacking bandits, and openly advocates for amnesty for the same people currently committing mass murder across the nation. It is insulting to compare a political agitator who is in detention and whose case involves constitutional violations with armed jihadists, terrorists who are slaughtering Nigerians daily. Reno's fixation on Igbo issue has destroyed his objectivity as a human being. It is now predictable. If the issue involves an Igbo person, especially Nnamdi Kanu, Peterobi, Reno Omokri immediately takes the most extreme interpretation possible. But when the same issue involves Fulani militia, bandits, or Boko Haram apologists, he becomes suddenly maybe pastor, philosophical, cautious, and balanced. Because why not? Why can't you ask Reno, how many times have he talked about the abduction going on across the Nigeria today? So why is it the issue of Nnamdi Kanu who's already been sentenced and convicted that is disturbing him, as he wished to hear. So the double standard is very glaring. Fourth, the attempt to tie peterobi to violence is political propaganda. Reno has never brought a single court-verified piece of evidence that Kanu ordered the destruction of Lagos. He cites unverified audio clips and coincidence of timing as proof, yet he ignores the rule of political talks sponsored as on Lagos State's own admission that many attacks were not carried out by protesters. The judicial panel findings showing that hoodlums hijacked the movement. Truth does not matter in Reno's narrative, only the political value for attacking the Igbo does to him. His final question collapses on itself. peterobi is defending due process and political dialogue. Gumi is defending terrorists in active warfare against the Nigerian state. So pretending these two are the same is not an argument. It is a complete propaganda. So Reno's hatred for anything Igbo has become so consuming that he now draws a straight line between IPOB and Fulani terrorists just to attack peterobi. The comparison is intellectually weak, morally dishonest, and politically manipulative. If Reno Omokri truly cared about Nigeria, he would use the same energy to condemn those who are unaliving children, who are destroying churches, who are taking people from the churches and kidnapping entire communities, not a political prisoner like Nnamdi Kanu, whose case is being fought in court. Hello my people, as most of us already know, the Federal High Court in Abuja delivered its judgment, and Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of indigenous people of Biafra, was found guilty on 7 counts of terrorism and sentenced to life imprisonment. The courtroom erupted in fury and disbelief from his camp. IPOB rejected the verdict as politically motivated and vowed to appeal. Already across the southeast, a storm of emotions swelled: defiance, heartbreak, and deep anxiety. At the heart of the unfolding drama is Governor of Abia State, Otti. He later issued a public declaration saying he had activated a strategy to secure Kanu's release, a strategy he began working on even during the trial. Otti explained that he had already made agreements at the highest authorities in the land and had kept Nnamdi Kanu informed during a visit to him in DSS custody. He framed his approach as diplomatic and political, not violent, warning other politicians against exploiting Kanu's plight for a cheap headlines. Otti also, appealed for calm among Abia and broader Igbo community, urging people not to inflame tensions as his negotiation work continues. In a separate interview, he revealed he has personally engaged President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, claiming the president is favorably disposed to Kanu's release. Beyond verbal assurances, Otti said Southeast governors are coordinating quietly with the federal government. But who knows how true is this? He argues that the poor early management of IPOB's grievances helped create a mysterious situation, and unless handled delicately, it will balloon into something even more dangerous. Here is why I think that Kanu's conviction could make things more dangerous, aligning with the claim of Governor of Abia State. We all know that Kanu's life sentence risks stirring up more trouble in Nigeria, especially in Igbo land, because this is a place he has his majority of supporters. And like everyone knows, Kanu has over 90% of people supporting him from the southeast. Now, it feels like unfair punishment to many people there. Here is why. First, it could spark more violence and protests. The southeast has already seen attacks by unknown gunmen. The sentence, we all know, might radicalize more young people, turning peaceful complaint into fights. For example, peterobi said it's a failure of leadership that could aggravate tension and make security worse nationwide. If people feel ignored, sit-at-home orders could turn into bigger boycotts, hurting the economy in places like Lagos. Secondly, it deepens old divisions. Nigeria has a history of ethnic tensions like the 1967 and 1970 Biafra War, where over millions of Igbos were actually unalived. This sentence reminds people of that pain, making them think the government favors other groups. Bandits in the north often get amnesty or deals, but Kanu gets life sentence for talking. This could lead to more cause for breakup within the country, weakening Nigeria's unity. Third, economic and political fallout. Businesses in the southeast might shut down more, and diaspora Igbos living abroad, that is those living abroad, could push for international pressure like sanctions. In 2027 elections, leaders like Tinubu could lose support, as Cubana Chief Priest warned, turning the region against the government. In overall, it's like adding fuel to fire. Small problems could explode into bigger chaos if not handled with talks instead of jail. In that regard, Cubana Chief Priest is telling Tinubu, as long as Nnamdi Kanu remains in detention, he will never get not even up to 10,000 votes in the entire Southeast in 2027 election. He's telling him Nnamdi Kanu's continued detention is destroying Tinubu's political fortunes in the Southeast, and only Nnamdi Kanu's unconditional release can save him. Cubana Chief Priest is telling Tinubu Southeast governors, ministers, and political allies are useless, cowardly, and incapable of delivering votes or respect for Tinubu. They are only interested in personal gain. Chief Priest said the recent meeting at the Bon Hotel with Southeast leaders and businessmen was a gathering of deceivers who cannot help Tinubu. Cubana Chief Priest is saying that if Nnamdi Kanu is not released, Tinubu will lose everything in 2027. His legacy in the Southeast will be destroyed, and the region will reject him completely. According to him, Southeast belong to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and Kanu remains the only respected leader of Igbo. We all know genuinely that it's only one governor from the Southeast is genuinely pursuing for Kanu's release. So Governor Alex Otti is urging everywhere to be calm. This is how most Nigerians reacted to Kanu's conviction. Reactions are actually split, but many are angry. Like 90% of Nigerians are angry, especially from the Southeast. Talking about the outrage in the Southeast, markets closed in places like Owerri and Enugu as people mourned. Groups like IPOB called it a travesty and vowed to continue fighting peacefully. Social media exploded with hashtags like Free Nnamdi Kanu now, with over 1 million posts in hours. About 75% online posts say it is unjust, pointing to ignorant court rulings and hypocrisy. Protests happened in diaspora spots like London. Then some are in mixed reactions. Now, this is why I believe Nnamdi Kanu should not have been convicted. Kanu was charged with terrorism, but many argue it does not fit because terrorism usually means planning violence with weapons to scare people. Here's why he shouldn't have been convicted in simple terms. First, no direct violence. No evidence showed Kanu used guns, bombs, or other killings himself. His crimes were speech on radio calling for Biafra vote, a referendum, which is a legal right under African human rights laws. Sit-at-home protests caused issues, but they started as a response to government raids, government killings, not terror plans. Then secondly, talking about the past rulings, the Supreme Court in 2021 said charges were invalid because Kanu was kidnapped from Kenya illegally. Convicting him now ignores that right, making it unfair. Plus, violence in the Southeast increased after his arrest. And this was always blamed on criminals, not Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Let's not forget, bandit and Boko Haram leaders get deals, lighter treatment. Some northern governors even give them cars. It's like punishing words as terror while real killers go free. Groups like Amnesty International call it a crackdown on free speech, not justice. And that will bring you this very nagging question: why are Igbo always treated differently? Igbos from the Southeast often face unequal treatment in Nigeria due to history and probably politics. It's not fair, and Kanu's case highlights it completely.